Welcome back once more from the YouTube space in New York City. I'm Elaine Quijano alongside our panel, and so much to get to. Let's turn to the topics of gender equality and healthcare. And I want to start with transgender rights, because Nina, this is something that you talked about earlier on. This is an issue that has continued to be in the news, the issue of transgender rights. Recently, there was the Trump administration's decision to withdraw Obama-era guidelines. That drew the attention of Caitlyn Jenner. Let's go ahead and take a listen to that bite.
I have a message for the bullies. You're sick. And because you're weak, you pick on kids, you pick on women, or anyone else you think is vulnerable. Apparently, even becoming the Attorney General isn't enough to cure some people of their insecurities. As proof, the Supreme Court will soon hear a very important Title IX case, thanks to the courage of a very brave young man, Gavin Grimm. Mr. President, we'll see you in court. Finally, I have a message for President Trump from, well, one Republican to another. This is a disaster, and you can still fix it. You made a promise to protect the LGBTQ community. Call me. So, Nina, today the Supreme Court said that they would not hear that case. I know you feel strongly about this. What's your reaction?
Well, I hate the fact that he says he wants to propose that, transgender bathroom bill because he cares about his citizens and the safety of them. In reality, transgender people face the most harassment and violence out of anyone, even not just from cisgender or straight people, but from people within the queer community, so they're facing it from both sides, and even transgender women, they're 7 times more likely to face hate violence crimes, and transgender women of color are 6 times more likely to face crimes than most. And, he wants to talk about, somebody could go in there and be sexually assaulted by someone who identifies as trans. But transgender women are almost twice as likely to be sexually assaulted. So who really needs the safety here? If you make these, if someone who appears as a woman walks into, a men's bathroom, how is that going to look? Most likely they're going to be attacked. And people like to base it on, private parts or whatever. But what happens if a transgender person happens to get bottom surgery? What's your opinion on that? If you're really about, it's private parts. Like I said before, they are the most in danger, yet they're viewed as the enemy, and it makes no sense to me.
Zora, you're nodding your head over there. It's interesting. Nina brings up the point that there is even discrimination within the gay community against people who identify as transgender.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, there's no excuse for this at this point. If someone makes a claim that they'd like to promote equality or help the LGBTQ+ community, then I really think this is the issue that you can't change the fact that people will identify the way they will identify and use the bathroom of their choice. I think it's one of those fundamental rights that I'm always surprised to see in the news, because it just seems like such a basic decision. I would like to use the bathroom where I would like to use the bathroom. That shouldn't be up to my president or my elected representative. It should be up to me. And so I think that's really where the issue falls.
Ashley, she calls it a fundamental right. How do you see it?
I see it as an issue that I feel for both children who are facing this in our schools. We want all of our children to have equitable resources, to have equality. So it's something that I believe that needs to be dealt with on an individual basis, an individual district, an individual school. We really need to look at the policies that we're making and making sure that it's best for both of all of our students.
Scotty, what about you?
I think this is where the 10th Amendment comes in. I think this is where President Trump's stance was. Put it back to the community, to their answers. But recently there was an issue. There's actually a logistical issue that's starting to arise. We saw there was a case in Texas where a transgender male wrestled in the female division and won and beat all the girls, and now has the college scholarships, got all the awards that go with it. And there is a physical difference between male and female bodies at different points. I think this is going to open up a lot of questions that are going to need to be answered, so that we're not kind of self-defeating because girls competing against boys just because they need access to a college scholarship in some cases. I think that's opening up a road that we don't need to go down.
Let's turn to the issue over funding Planned Parenthood, because this is something that we heard a lot about during the campaign campaign, certainly, and this was essentially a rallying cry, right? On the one hand, you had Republicans talking about defunding Planned Parenthood. You had Democrats vowing to protect it. I wonder if, Amani, you think this is an issue that'll be a flashpoint in the year to come, or do you think that this is, given the other issues that we're seeing, this is something that is not necessarily going to get as much attention?
I really don't think that if the women are going to have a say about it, that this is going to be an issue that goes away. I think that it's really important for us to think about preserving the sanctity of womanhood right now, of our livelihoods. And that's something that is getting thrown under the bus. You know, it's really important to support women's choice, their autonomy to their bodies. And that is something that I feel every woman is entitled to. And it's important for our government to not impede on that, right? I mean, it's one thing to not create policies in support of that, let alone to create policies making it an even more detrimental situation for us. And I think it's completely hostile and unnecessary.
Well, let's go take a listen to Kellyanne Conway, who talked about this issue recently. Let's take a listen.
Why are we here? What does it mean to stand together, to be part of this incredible movement, to face criticism, ridicule, laws and lawmakers that diminish and erode our most basic right and the bedrock of our society? It means to protect and to promote the most precious gift in the world, the gift of life.
All right, that, of course, was Kellyanne Conway at the March for Life. Obviously, Scotty, you would agree with Kellyanne Conway there and see it very differently.
Absolutely, because I believe that life begins at conception, and I am fighting for the future life of women and men, and those babies that are being aborted. And if you talk about family planning, we have a lot of options today that we might not have had 10, 20 years ago. You do have birth control that is available. You have other ways of taking care of planning for family planning. And abortions, unfortunately, and the funding, and it's not, we can't legally fund Planned Parenthood. I get it. But I do believe that the money that we give as the federal government to Planned Parenthood is reallocated to where eventually the abortions are covered. It's just against our fundamental. We have as much the right to believe that life begins at birth as anybody else believes that it doesn't believe until actually that first breath of air is taken.
You made the point that we all have access to contraception now, which is true. A majority of low-income women rely on Planned Parenthood, and
they can go to the county health department. Every single county in this country, you have a county health department that it does have that has free birth control. So there are options besides Planned Parenthood.
Birth control doesn't always work, though. Well, that's not always the situation. Like, what about women that are rape victims?
You can always,
you know, like, but if we're talking about,
you're still pro-life. If a child,
what about being pro-life for women that are grown women that need this type of service?
What we're finding people are using abortions as a choice of birth control. They're killing a life. And to those of us that are fundamental Christians, those of us that are women of faith, or even those of us that just believe in pro-life, that is murder in our book, and we take that very seriously.
And so isn't the best prevention of abortion education?
Absolutely.
And access to contraception?
So then do it through the county and don't make abortions be the options.
But with abortions, no one wants to have an abortion. No one wakes up in the morning.
I heard that. Did I miss the Hollywood? I know, but did I miss Hollywood dressing up saying, bragging about their abortion?
Yeah, so but like I was saying, think about abortion. No one wakes up one morning and says, oh, I'm going to have an abortion. It's heartbreaking, you know, extensive circumstances that women have to make this choice. And whether you make it legal or not, it's still going to happen. So no one wants to see, you know, a life die, but I would rather see safe abortions happen rather than back alley abortions that kill not only the baby, but the woman as well.
Right. But what about gospel? First of all, Leah Dunham, and you have a whole slate of Hollywood celebrities that have come out and said that I wish that I had an abortion, or I wish that I'm proud of my abortion. You've had this great pop culture that's promoted abortions, but then you do have abortion doctors like Gosnell, in the Gosnell case, where he would literally pull babies out alive and murder them there.
I don't think it's abortion pride. I think it's taking the shame out of, you know, having to make that hard choice of having an abortion.
Let me ask this, though Scotty brings up the point about what has been said by some celebrities, and Nina, I'm wondering, is that helpful when we talk about this issue, which is clearly a divisive issue in which there's very little common ground? Is that kind of rhetoric helpful when you are trying to essentially explain your point of view to folks who are, like Scotty, adamantly opposed to this?
I mean, I think, you know, people definitely need to speak out with it. You know, I mean, even, you know, Chelsea Handler, she's been very open about having an abortion, or I think she had 2 abortions actually, and it's stuff like that. It's like having an abortion is not only, you know, physically traumatizing for someone, it's also emotionally, psychologically. And so why are they shamed out of, speaking of their feelings? They have to live with this. Many of them live with regret. And why do they have to bottle all of that up?
It's real simple. Birth the baby and have an adoption. We have lots of great couples today that are looking for children in America today. That's so hard to get an adoption. That would love them.
The system is so
well, then
flawed,
let's reform the adoption. Let's work together and let's reform the adoption system so that we can do that.
Is there common ground, Zora, do you think?
No, I agree. I think we'd certainly, there are a whole slew of issues we need to fix in this country. But I think when it comes down to pro-choice versus pro-life, it's really that decision. It's whether or not you want to choose to have an abortion or whether or not you want to abstain from that. Being pro-choice isn't being pro-abortion. It's not saying, oh, I just got pregnant, I'd like to get rid of this baby. No, it's being able to have that opportunity to have that choice and to be supported when you make that decision. And I think fundamentally, I think we can all agree that we're feminists, whether modern or not, whether Kellyanne Conway feminists or not. I think we can all agree that we want to have that choice and that support. Whether or not you want to choose to have an abortion, we want to have the ability to, make that decision on our own.
But what about the baby's choice? That's what it comes down to. It's that I believe that the baby is the second at conception, that is a life, and I am here to fight for that life.
But that's your belief, though. That's your belief. Why does it have to be imposed on the entire country?
For it. And just like others fight for their beliefs of their faith.
Why does it have to be imposed on the entire country,
though?
It's
not. But right now, murder. The key is it is still murder in our book, and so therefore let's make sure it's not.
But would you want anyone to impose their own personal belief on everybody in an entire country?
We're dealing with life or death here. This is not just about a social issue. This is life or death here. Exactly. And so I think this is where we have this argument right now. Do I think that Roe versus Wade is going to be reversed? Probably not. Even with the Supreme Court nominee, it's already been the law. But what I do believe, though, is we have other ways of, instead of promoting and being proud, which our Hollywood celebrities like Chelsea Handler have been very proud of their abortions, need to stop making this being the case of the way to handle birth control. And instead of to handle abortions, let's talk about adoption instead.
I just have a quick question, and just we only have about 30 seconds left, I'm told, in this segment. But do you all expect anything to change on this issue? Scotty, you mentioned Roe versus Wade. You don't expect anything to change on that. But when it comes to some of these other, perhaps, avenues like Scotty mentions, where might be.
I'm afraid it'll get worse.
You think it'll get worse?
I'm afraid it'll get worse.
You think there will be less access to
absolutely.
safe and legal abortions? You do. And Scotty, do you?
I think we hopefully will have better on education. I think there'll be much more of an emphasis on educating folks of all types, of all ages, on how to properly handle this type of situation.
All right. Well, this is clearly an emotional issue, ladies. Thank you so much for your perspective.